Okay, when you're looking at a client and what their goals are, you need to really think to yourself, what is the risk versus the benefits? What you have to understand now, it's not about your training anymore. Whereas you might be perfectly comfortable doing plyometrics, or you might be perfectly comfortable doing barbell squats. Squats is a great exercise, but you and I both know it is a complicated movement. It does load the spine. So a person with lower back injuries who might not know they have lower back injuries, you might not know, they might even not know to tell you that because they do not have an underlying issue that's just sitting there waiting to happen. If they're not an athlete or an advanced person, think to yourself, how important is it that I put a bar on their shoulders and load their spine? Maybe they would do well with just simply squatting up and down and touching their rear end to a bench. Maybe they would be better off with a physio ball and placing it up against the wall and rolling up and down. Maybe they would do better with the leg press or a step up, or maybe even a lunge, which actually is pretty advanced, if you will. A person a lot of times probably wouldn't start off with lunges day one if they've never worked out. Plyometrics, do they really need to do plyometrics? I know we see that on television a lot, but it's not necessary for an over 40 mother of 3 who's simply trying to get in shape. So we need to look at that. It's not worth you getting sued over. What benefits does this exercise have in regards to helping my client achieve their goals? Once again, does that 40-year-old mother with 3 children really need to be able to jump up and down off an 18-inch block? I mean, what is the purpose of that? If she's wanting to have her rear end and her thighs tighter, we can do lots and lots of things that do not load her joints and make it a dangerous thing. So is the risk worth the benefit of this exercise? You need to look at those things and think about, once again, shifting the gears as need be and doing what's appropriate for the person. Strength factors, advantages and disadvantages. We know that stocky, shorter guys that have shorter limbs have shorter levers. That's why they go from this point A to point B. There's less distance to travel, so they have a biomechanical advantage. It is not a coincidence that a person who typically gets into powerlifting is usually going to be relatively short-armed to the girth of their chest. Tendon insertions, that's another thing. The further the muscle attaches from the joint axis, the greater the mechanical advantage affecting muscle strength. So we are all born different ways. We've got to look at that. Muscle belly length. Well, that's one of the things you'll hear a lot of times. I want my muscles to be longer. I want to train so they're longer. Well, that's a genetic predisposition. You cannot train your muscles to be a certain length. The length of the muscle fibers, not including the attached tendon, that is going to be genetically predisposed. For example, the calf muscle, is it short or long? The more fast twitch muscle fibers genetically, the stronger the muscle, okay? That has to do with, are you going to be a long distance runner or are you going to be a sprinter? You know, what is your fiber distribution about? Hormonal. Men have more testosterone than women, okay? Women might have very negligible amounts of testosterone. And then within men, there's different men, different age groups, typically 18 to 25, going to have your higher testosterone levels. You are more prone to building more muscle mass, which is why it's so uncommon for women to get too muscular. That just doesn't happen. Your motor unit recruitment. The recruitment of additional motor units increase the ability to use muscular force. The most rapid gains in strength are in the first 4 to 8 weeks due to the increase of synchronization of motor units fired at one time. That kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier with when we start a training program, we want to do low volume, high frequency, because really we're not trying to make the muscles really, really big. The body really doesn't want to make them big. What happens at first is we have increased nerve efficiency. Those nerves, those motor unit neurons start to synchronize and gather more fibers, which is why we then start to get stronger much, much quicker at the beginning of a training phase. And we want to do that often, but we don't need tons and tons of sets to do that. We need to be more repetitious about it. So that's what that has to do with. Overtraining or under-resting, we could call it. A lot of times people don't rest enough is relative to how much they're training. Signs of overtraining. You have a decrease in performance. You get weaker. You lose your appetite. Muscle tenderness and joint soreness. In other words, if you feel like the workouts are working your joints more than your muscles, you're probably overtraining. You're starting to get little minor injuries, one after another. It's not one major thing, but it's like, your shoulder's bothering you today, your back's bothering you tomorrow, things like that. You even might feel nauseous, might be able to have disrupted sleep. You don't sleep soundly, you wake up a lot during the night. Elevated resting heart and blood pressure. You might feel depressed and or you might feel irritable.